Good morning. This is Karl Dakin, and this is the Successful Funding Show. Welcome to everyone who is in the viewing audience this morning. Appreciate your participation in the show, and anytime that you want, feel free to ask a question, put it out there for us so that the information that I'm trying to share here this morning may be more targeted, more pinpointed to your particular needs. And that's the purpose of today's program. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Karl Dakin. I refer to myself as the Capital Coach. This helps distinguish me as a person who is out there trying to help small businesses and community projects raise capital, and makes a difference between me and a broker or an intermediary who is trying to sell a particular investment opportunity. My goal is to help those organizations who want to raise funding to target those investor candidates most likely to invest, to design capital campaigns that target those particular investors, and then implement that plan in a way that will lead to success. I do a variety of things in terms of consulting, and as an update for everyone who has been following me on this show or in my daily newsletter, Instant Funding, that's published on LinkedIn, I've been going through a kind of an overhaul, rewrite, or makeover, whatever term you want to use, on the services that I am providing through my consulting firm, Dakin Capital. And within that, what I'm doing is I've expanded the services that I will now be offering in 2025 to include a number of services which are investor facing, as opposed to the person who's trying to raise the funding. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to address the gap between the investors on one hand and the people seeking to raise funding on the other hand, where the opportunity is not ready for a capital campaign. One of the top 10 challenges that I've talked about in prior programs is that the person or the enterprise looking to raise capital doesn't have everything ready to go. They're not ready to tell their story. They haven't figured out who to, even put their books and records together so that they can put a value on the business today and going forward, a variety of different things. And for these reasons, it's not ready to then target investor candidates or put a price on its offering or anything along that line. At the same time, I've been talking with a lot of people who are wealthy individuals, who are wealth managers, and they have expressed to me their concern that they're seeing a lot of opportunities out there, but they're not perfected. They're not ready for funding. And so we have a challenge where here's an opportunity sitting in the middle. Here's somebody who wants the opportunity to move forward as a business enterprise. And yet over here, the person with the money, the person who would invest in enterprise, is also seeing that it's not ready. And there's a gap. And this gap, we've been talking about filling it from the side of the business over here, but we also want to talk about now filling it from the side of the investor. So I'm working with a number of people to offer a progressive set of services that would identify opportunities, do due diligence on them, and create commercialization plans which set forth everything necessary to bring that particular opportunity to a point of realizing its full potential value. These services will be paired or matched with services to people looking to raise funding. And I've broken these out into a number of different specific packages. All this information is now available on my website at dakincapital.com. So those of you who are interested in learning more, about the things that need to be done, both on the investor side or on the fundraising side, can go to my website, look through the different services, and see the different types of activities that are necessary to really get a opportunity ready to raise funding, and then the process through which that funding would occur. So there's that as a starting point. Other things, news in the works, so to speak, is I have completed the first part of my educational program on investor identification. A couple of weeks ago, I put on the webinar portion of this. The program went extremely well. I was very happy with the content, and the participants in the program gave me very positive feedback. So I am now going to repeat this portion of the educational program with the next webinar scheduled for April 2nd. But instead of doing all the webinar on a single day in a half day 4-hour presentation, it's going to be staged out over 4 different days on the same day of the week, Wednesday of each week, April 2nd through the 23rd. So if you have an interest in participating in this education program, just go to my website, go to dakincapital.com events, and you'll be able to see where you can sign up for this particular full package program. In addition, I've repackaged this as a value package where I've taken a pre-recorded version of the webinar and without the half-hour consultation and bundled those together at a lower price for those of you who need to save a few dollars and do not want to participate in an interactive session like we do during the webinar. And finally, the book will be available on its own as a standalone product. All these are available on the website, so you can check it out and find out more about that. On other news, just to let other people catch up on what's going on in my work and where I'm at today, is I will be working with the University of Denver again this year, putting on an educational program for the graduate students in the School of Finance or Department of Finance within the Daniel School of Business. We will be going to Belize again in the last week of March, and we do a series of online courses in advance of this program that will start this Friday, and then every other week up till we take about a dozen students down to the country of Belize, where they are going to do a comparative analysis between investing in property in Belize when compared with investing in a similar property here in the United States. So get to learn a little bit about the differences in culture, government, and available financing between the two countries. And that's the outcome that we're looking to achieve within this educational program at the University of Denver. This year, we're also taking a peek at a new project that we may do into next year, which is to buy an island in the Caribbean and develop it as an ecotourism site. So any of you who have always had this dream of owning your own island, this may be an opportunity for you to participate. And again, if you want to talk to me about this educational program, just reach out to me by email at my site. Going forward, I'm planning to do some additional educational programs this year. One is going to be on top 10 challenges or obstacles to raising funding. This will be put into the same format as the Investor ID program. I'm also going to do one called Dakin's Edge, which is on an individual raising donations for their favorite charity. So you'll be seeing a lot about that in the coming weeks as we go forward. So lots of things going on right now. The top project on my desk is a project to create and fund a smart city. This is its own topic, so we'll bring it back in the future for everyone to talk and look at and get some other people to chip in on what is a smart city, how do you fund such a complicated thing, where does it go, what does it mean going forward. So finally, that brings us then to today's topic. So I'm trying to stay on my own time clock here. But we're going to talk about the metrics of a business in terms of how it has a positive impact on its community and on the world. And this is a very important topic that I've been talking with a variety of people about, and I've initiated my own internal, I will call it, research and development program to help everybody understand this a little bit better. But before we do that, I'm going to reach out to the people in the audience this morning and say hello. First, we have with us Zach Dane. Good morning, Zach. Good to hear from you. Glad you're with us on the program today. I have some more information on the project down in Belize that I'll be getting over to you later, where we're having our students use a fractional real estate ownership model, which is Zach's area of expertise. Zach is rolling out a new business that will allow for people to invest in real estate in a fashion that they don't have to manage the real estate from an investor standpoint, but it allows the average person to put money into a real estate project and have a little bit easier liquidity in their ownership, which is the same kind of thing that we're going to ask the students to look at with this property down in Belize, which is a condominium on the beach in the city of Placencia, Belize. So thanks, Zach, for being with us this morning. Then we have Chris Coase. Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly, Chris, because that's not one of my talents. It says, would you consider doing property comparison in Durban, South Africa? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. We had a discussion with national, provisional, and city governments to discuss these topics. It's interesting. What we ended up doing with Belize, to give you a little bit of background on this, Chris, is the University of Denver has a stated policy that they want all their students to have a world perspective, not to get trapped so much in what we would call a U.S. thinking mindset, and to understand a little bit more about how people do things differently in other parts of the world, how they work with each other from different parts of the world. And so they have kind of an open invitation to all the faculty members to come up with new programs that can help the students learn about this kind of a thing. And I was asked prior to COVID if I could come up with something. And I reached out to my friend Boris Mansfield, who is kind of straddling the fence between Denver, Colorado and Placencia, Belize, where he's doing real estate development and operates one of the largest real estate agencies in the country of Belize. And I said, hey, can you help me put something together? So this March, we are doing a program where on the ground, the students will get to meet with the local port authority. They'll get to meet local businesses, some locally started, some expat businesses. We will look at different types of real estate development, both resort and agricultural. And all of this is in the context of getting to understand that Belize does things differently. Some things better, some things worse, some matter of opinion. But getting to understand how this can happen in another country is very important to the students. And I'd be happy to talk to you about what might be done to do something similar in Durban, South Africa. So reach out to me at my email as here, shown here. And let's talk about this some more because I would be very interested in having that conversation. The other thing that we're working on towards next year is there is an island that's currently serving as a site for a couple NGOs, non-governmental organizations, for those who need the acronym, which means a nonprofit or a charity, who are doing environmental studies. And they're concerned, of course, about the coral reefs that make up the barrier reef off of Belize, the second largest in the world. And a lot of these barrier reefs are in a controlled, protected environmental zone. So it represents both an opportunity to help preservation, but also to engage in learning more about how barrier reefs work, how coral grows, how all the different plants and animals that are in the reef are there. And so we are considering what would be an ecotourism site that would include housing for researchers, coupled with people who would be potentially doing volunteer work while observing the work of the people who are doing the research, and doing this on an island in a beautiful setting. So Boris Mansfield and I actually put on a program last Thursday that you can find on my LinkedIn profile, called Belize Real Estate and Lifestyles, where we talked about the island. So there's some more information and some really good pictures there for show and tell. But all these represent situations where I'm trying to help people understand, how do you get something funded? How do you, now expanding my scope of my services, how, if you have money you want to invest, what do you do when everything that you're seeing is not yet perfected to the point of being ready to receive funding? Where can you step in with money in a controlled fashion? What can you do to cure the issues or the challenges or what the missing parts in a particular opportunity, in order to bring it to a point where it is fundable, and you can realize better value because you've gotten into the deal when it's underpriced as opposed to overpriced. So we're going to do a lot of work, and you're going to see a lot of that coming up in programs through the remainder of this year. So today's topic is on, as I said, business impact metrics. And to put this in perspective, when a business offers itself, for funding, it goes to investors and say, "Hey, look at me, I would like to get some funding in here." The classical approach, the traditional approach, is to make a statement that if you give me money, I'll give you money back that's larger than the money you originally gave me. This larger amount of money is the return on the investment. And all too often, it's the only real metric that's offered up for an investor to look at. So as we call it, the investor is looking at it from a single benefit dimension. It's the only thing they have to judge the business by. And then they're asking themselves, is the rest of the structure they offer match my criteria? Is it the right term? Is their exit going to allow me to get out at the time that I want to get out? What kind of structure? Is it debt, revenue, or equity? We get into a variety of the variables that can be put into a simple investment. But what we've seen is a trend that is now judging a business, is now evaluating one business versus another business, where an investor has to make a choice between two or more businesses, both competing for the same amount of funding. And they ask themselves, they say, well, what if I chose a business that has a more valuable impact on their community, on the world? What if I could use that as a different factor, a different filtering thing, a different scoring basis in choosing which business they may invest in? And there are people now very intentionally who are doing this, and they're called impact investors. And what they are trying to assess is, how does this business improve everything around it? So stepping outside of the four walls of the business, looking at everybody they interact with, how they interact, what that interaction is, can we come up with a way of determining how much good or positive social impact that this business may have? And if we can, then we can use this to expand our scorecard when we're an investor, wearing the investor hat. We can go, yes, it's got a return of investment that meets my criteria, deal structure, a whole 9 yards is all good, but it's got these other factors. And these other factors may warm my heart. It may actually enhance my pocketbook because it may be all monetary. Or it could be something that you have as an affinity because there's a social cause or there's a reason why you want to support this particular business. And this has been a topic going back, I think the first time I heard the term impact investing was at a SOCAP event in San Francisco back in 2005, almost 20 years ago. And at that time, everybody was throwing out their own definition of what is impact and how do you measure it. And 20 years later, we still have a lot of work to do. The problem is that a lot of the things that people value when they talk about social impact are subjective. They are impossible to quantify. So you can't put them on a spreadsheet in a very simple fashion and go, hey, this one's clearly better than the next one. And if we were going to use only quantitative data, we don't have anything really to work with. And a lot of the subjective valuation also brings it down to the personal level, meaning that my opinion of what a business is doing well may be radically different than the next person. And because I'm an individual, and as I've professed on this show and in my newsletter and all my writings, I think all businesses are unique, and I think all investors are unique. And I have experienced investors who could have a change of heart from morning to afternoon. So it could even be that everybody's unique by the minute or by the hour, rather than being a constant. And there's a lot of reasons why this gets important as we talk about this. So what I have done is I've put together a starting point, a list of 20 different impact metrics that I think can be used to evaluate a business. And I've tried to do this in a quantitative fashion where I've acknowledged that this is not the end-all answer. There may be another 20 metrics out there that are purely subjective that can be highly personalized or customized to the investor. But I wanted to do something that at least we could add a different table on the slide deck, a different chart in the offering memorandum, something that would allow the investor to see the business in a more holistic perspective, one that might represent the community, it might represent citizen of the world, but it would do something along that line. Now, part of the reason why this is important to everyone who's listening to the show, watching the show today, or watching a recording of it later, is that we've had some decreases in investments taking place within the capital industry. We saw major cutbacks in venture capital funding. We saw major cutbacks in private equity funding and angel funding. And King's Crowd, which is a great publication for those who follow the investment crowdfunding world, reported that in 2024, investment crowdfunding was down 18%. And this, as anyone can imagine, is telling anyone who's raising money, it's getting harder out there because it isn't that the money isn't there, but there is the same or a growing number of people trying to raise funding from a smaller and smaller number of investors with smaller dollars being invested. So This would be like running a 1 mile race and somebody suddenly telling you, no, it's no longer a mile, it's a mile and a quarter. You're going to have to go further. You're going to have to compete harder to get to the same point. And so as a business who's out there competing in the capital industry, looking for funding, the ability to tell your story more effectively, in this case, adding richness to it by adding the concept of impact metrics to your pitch, to your presentation, is going to become more important. Some investors still may or may not care about anything other than ROI. But as these investors are combing through all the different people competing for their money, if you have this data and you present it well in your pitch, it's going to help you stand out, make you potentially superior to your competitors, and that gives you the best chance of getting the funding that you're looking for. And this is something that is now compounded by two factors that I talked about in a number of my articles on my instant funding newsletter last year. One is Bitcoin. Everybody who continues to be in love with Bitcoin, which is an unfunded, zero asset cryptocurrency, is claiming that you can basically blindly put money into Bitcoin. You can call it an investment, but it's essentially a legalized form of gambling because there are no assets behind it. And this means that if you can get a higher rate of return investing or speculating in Bitcoin than putting it into the local coffee shop or putting it into even the next high flyer technology company, whether it's AI or something else, then a lot of money is going to be pulled out of the capital industry and it's going to be put into this cryptocurrency. This is pulling more money out of the industry, which means that it's harder even now than to compete for this funding, because the investor is asking themselves, well, would I rather put my money in a startup, high risk, small business, or would I put it into Bitcoin? And I think this is going to be a continuing growing concern for everyone who's looking for funding, because Bitcoin is going to distract, it's going to divert, and it's going to pull money out of the marketplace, which is going to make the competition all that much more fierce for those who are out there raising money. The other factor, which has become more pronounced over the last several days, is the new presidential Trump administration has taken a major number of acts that all have major impact, both some short-term, some long-term. And right now, if you go to large organizations who commonly monitor national policy and so forth, everybody's a little bit confused. Nobody's really certain what's going on. And uncertainty is a bad thing if you're raising funding, because investors hate uncertainty. They want stability. Because when they put their money into a project, they are not going to get it back for a while. And the more difficult it is for them to predict how the market is going to move, how the economy is going to move over a period of time that represents the term of the investment, this makes it harder for them to get over the risk factor associated with that. They may make a choice of doing nothing, which is called dry powder, or keeping your money in your own account where you can spend it as you need it, when you need it, which could be more of an emergency reserve if they get very concerned. Or they may simply put it into a less risky type of investment. Instead of putting money into a small business or a community project or something else, they may decide that they would put this money into a treasury note investment or CDs or something that has some guarantees, some assurance that the money will still be there. And this, again, means that if you're trying to raise funding, the amount of funding available has become smaller, the competition has become harder, And it's likely that this is going to be the situation for all of 2025 and possibly into the next few years. I have a comment here that Bitcoin's not speculative investment, and I'm not going to respond to that because I disagree. Anything that has no underlying value means that it can only be viewed as speculative. And the fact that people assign a price to it, the price goes up or down, but this up or down price is purely based upon speculation is simply that. Because it's a limited or finite number of coins being issued, it forces people to think of it as having an inherent value when it doesn't. It should not. And so I'm in disagreement with those people who take the position that Bitcoin is a legitimate investment. I'm in disagreement with the way Bitcoin is set up. And I also decline to participate in any cryptocurrency project that is not backed by assets. I think that it's no more than what Trump's new meme coin, the dollar Trump, is out there. It has no underlying value. And so therefore it can go up and it can go down. And if everybody decides, that it should go down, what are you going to do about it? We have everything in the world you can place a price tag on, but whether that constitutes a legitimate investment backed by value or it's something else, that's a topic that we're not going to go on beyond what I've already done here this morning. So getting into the question of small business impact, I started trying to figure out what does every small business bring? What can it occur? What can it do that could represent a possible measurement point with regard to these different things? And so I've come up with a list of 20 items. I'm going to go through them very quickly just to tell you what's in the list. Tell you the list is not complete. It needs further refinement, evaluation. But you can kind of get a flavor for where I'm going with this. So the first one on the list is job creation. Small businesses create 80% of the new jobs in the United States. New jobs are critical to the economy. They're critical for people who need a job to pay their bills. They're critical to the communities where they exist because this results in the payment of taxes in a variety of forms that cover all the services of our government. The number of new jobs you create, the pay scale of the new jobs, there are several different ways we can measure this, but they're there. And I often look at job creation as the number one metric that I like to see when we talk about a new startup. So if you're a solo entrepreneur and you're never going to hire anyone else, then your metric is 1, and that's still good, but it's not going to be valued necessarily as strongly as somebody with 20 jobs or 50 jobs. The second one is local purchasing, meaning that if I'm in a community and I'm now going out and buying, I'm renting an office, I am buying equipment, I'm buying inventory, how much am I buying dollar-wise? What volume am I spending in my local community? These are ways of measuring how the startup of a business in a community can positively impact that community. I then look at tax contributions, money that's going to the government. This can be sales tax, property tax, income tax, specialty taxes. These days, you need to add tariffs to that list of taxes. All these taxes contribute to payment for schools. They pay for police safety, firemen who deal with wildfires. All the things that we want our government to do for us are essentially set up where somehow the government receives a payment that is used to pay for these activities. If we're talking with an economic developer, they will use what we call an economic multiplier effect. It's assumed that when you spend money in a community, that money is received and spent again. So the more money that comes into the community, this helps build community wealth. As long as the money stays in the community, this is a growth factor. If the money comes into a community and leaves the community, there may be no multiplier factor at all. And a lot of times, this is a weakness in some economic development plans where the money doesn't even come to rest. It digitally moves in and out like a wire transfer, and it's gone before it has any local impact. We look at support for local programs. This could be helping a local charity. It could be working with a religious organization. It could be any number of things. And this could be measured in terms of dollars and in time or both. I look at skills development. If you're hiring people and when you hire them, you put them into a career advancement program, which either you can provide internally or team with a local educational institution or simply reimburse them, then you're helping each worker enhance their skill set. By doing so, they increase their earning power, and that increases another factor in what you might consider community wealth, which is, what is the level of education? What is the level of skill? How is this translating into higher compensation, which then in turn enhances everybody around them? We have the question of innovation and entrepreneurship. What are you doing that's new or different? If you're running a coffee shop and you're doing it the same way your grandfather did, with no innovation, which is hard to imagine these days because you can't take cash payments in a lot of places. You have to use a credit card, so you're doing something new or different. But anybody who's trying to make the world a better place through creativity, innovation is going to score more points. This may be very difficult to evaluate if you're not getting into intellectual property rights, where you don't have a new patent or a copyright or something else of that nature that you can point to that's there. Then we have the community identity and culture. What are you doing to build the brand of the community you live in? Are you proud of the Colorado Proud, as the Colorado Department of Agriculture puts out there? Are you proud of the city of Denver or the city that you live in? Are you doing anything to enhance the image of your community? Or are you completely focused on your own business to the point of being almost a bunker mentality, where no one knows you exist, nobody in your community knows why you're there, or even that you're there to evaluate? We have environmental sustainability. This can be viewed from two different perspectives. One is we're simply trying to be better conservators of the money we have as a manager of our business by reducing our energy consumption, by doing different things that are good for the environment from a conservation standpoint. Or we may be on the other side where we're trying to create better mechanisms for using energy, generating new energy, whether we're putting solar panels on all of the roofs of our buildings, whether we're a participant in a performance district, things of that nature. Then we have a question about affordability of goods and services. If you do only high-end goods, luxury goods, you have a marketplace. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe you get more points if you have affordable products. If you bring out a new medical product or a new pharmaceutical product, do you have a mechanism where people who can't afford it can get it at a discount or get it for free? Can you team with a charity or a foundation who might help arrange to get this to people who need it, who can't afford it? There may be a metric in terms of the amount of goods you set aside, the kind of discounts you give. We're going to look at that. We talk about social equity. This is something that's currently totally in the news. DEI or any number of ESG type of factors that have been prominent in the last presidential administration are now banned. And people who are seeking equality and trying to support equality are going to be more challenged on how they accomplish that without engaging in what is now called reverse discrimination or some other label that's been attached. It is good to have everyone with some level of equal access. I was taught that the word democratization or democracy is the best word to describe not just the political process, but everything that a person might have and own and live should have some degree of equality and access. That doesn't mean that everybody is going to get the same paycheck or that everybody's going to live in the same lifestyle, but having the ability to work towards that is very, very important. We have health and well-being. Health is something we all care about. We all need to take care of. But despite that fact, we've seen nothing but increasing prices in healthcare. And so if you're a business and you're doing things for your employees to help them be healthy, well, and with wellness programs, things like that, these are things that, again, can be quantitatively scored in terms of, are you covering 100% of the cost or 50% of the cost? And they're relative to the number of employees that you have. We have the topic of youth engagement. What are we doing for those people who are not yet 18? What are we doing for the young people who are just starting their careers, first time, possibly unskilled workers, to help them get a job, to become part of the company and engage in a career path? We have the issue of local leadership. Do you belong to a city commission? Have you taken part as a leader in your local chamber of commerce? Are you a major patron of a local charity? But are you doing something that, again, is outside your business that contributes to the welfare, to the richness of life in your community? We have resilience and economic stability. This doesn't really apply to a startup because you don't have a history over time. But if you've been around for a while, are you taking appropriate measures to protect yourself from swings in the economy, from natural disasters? Are you kind of the go-to safe haven, safe harbor when things go wrong in your community, where everybody goes, well, yeah, we're having a tough time, but we know that that company is going to be here tomorrow. There was a number of commercials about the Waffle Houses down in the South during the snowstorms last week, where they go, well, I do know one place that'll always be open is the Waffle Houses. And that's a sign of what you would call good economic stability and resilience. We have the issue of customer satisfaction. Are you keeping your customers? Are you getting the 5 gold stars on Amazon or some other vetting process? We have the housing impact. Are you providing for your employees to have housing? Are you contributing in some way to their getting and holding housing, building their own home ownership, building their own personal wealth? We have technology adoption, digital access. This is an even harder question as we get down this list to the bottom of the 20. It's harder and harder to discern what would be a truly quantitative type of measurement as something that becomes subjective. And so this is where I see a lot of the work going forward is going to be is, can we put a quantitative measure? Is it something that everybody can accept as a quantitative measurement so that it becomes a form or a standard that will give the investors more tools, more things to look at when they're looking at your pitch deck. I have a crisis response and recovery. This is a big deal in the LA, California wildfire area, but here in Colorado, we also have wildfires along the coast. We're still recovering from hurricanes. And what are we doing as a business to be part of the emergency response? Do we stockpile water for our customers, or do we have data access or power generators? What are we contributing to be ready when emergencies present themselves? And then finally, we have volunteerism and community or civic engagement. Are you paying your employees to have 1, 2 days or a week or more to contribute their services to a local charity? Are you making donations? Are you doing other things along that line? So this is my top 20, and with work, we may expand this list to 40 items, or we add maybe 20 more that are quantitative or 20 that are subjective. And I think that everybody should develop their own chart, their own investor chart. If you're going to invest in a crowdfunding campaign with only $100, it still would be good for you to look at the company and ask yourself, is this company doing good? Is it more about everybody rather than simply about itself? Is this going to impact me? Can I measure monetary or non-monetary benefit to me from the success of this business? Which means you have to understand how businesses work. You have to understand how they can create impact. You have to be able to either project or anticipate how good of an impact this may be over time. These are all things that I think will help us look at businesses going forward. Now, from the business standpoint, I think you need to do your own self-assessment. I've created a questionnaire. All this information will be put up on my website where you can find it. And I gotta go down in here, go to this page. If you go to my website, I'm going to put these up where you can download these documents. There's going to be a narrative description, which will ultimately be blown out into a full book and educational program. There will be the scorecard, which is kind of a working body for persons who want to try to evaluate a business and assign some kind of a number to each of these different metrics. And then there will be the questionnaire that an investor could submit to a business, or which a business can use to ask itself these same questions and then see, after they answer the questions, how well they fit up to the scorecard that an investor may use to take a look at them. So I'll have all these on the website later today. If you'll go to my website, and you go to the education tab, there'll be a sub tab or a sub page underneath of that on business impact metrics, and you'll be able to download these 3 documents. Anyone who's interested in this can monitor this as it goes forward. Ultimately, I'd like to convert this or upgrade this into a educational program where people can go deeper on this. And I'm talking with different people about creating a task force or working group to try to advance these ideas. Because as I am working with businesses and community projects looking to raise funding, I want them to put on their best story. I want them to present themselves in their best light. And adding this information to their story is going to make that happen. At the same time as I am working with investors who are looking for opportunities, these investors are also trying to say, well, how do I tell one business from another? If we only use ROI, return on investment, as our only metric, every business that claims that they can earn a 20% ROI looks like every other business that can claim a 20% ROI. And so at that point, it becomes a commodity. They all look alike. It's hard for the investor to make a choice between one business over another. And if you don't give them any other hooks, any other reason, any other rationale for why they should choose your company over another company that's offering the same rate of return that you're offering, they may choose the other company. And you want to win this competition. You want to be the business that actually gets the funding instead of seeing it go somewhere else. So in that regard, I'm going to be working this over time. Now, Dane has asked another question here. He says, what are the most impactful categories to spend your bootstrap funding on? The prototype, legal representation, customer segment polling, etc. This is a hard question, and I appreciate you putting it on the table. Keep in mind that there's a lot of things you're going to measure internally about your company, feature sets, things like that. You can get all hung up on how you do something, but that really isn't what a lot of people are going to judge you on. They're going to judge you on outcomes. So as I mentioned earlier, if I was looking at two different businesses, they're both offering a 20% ROI, I would probably favor the one that has more jobs created. Are you creating one job? Are you creating 20? Are you creating 1,000? What is your impact on the community? Are you building a data processing center that is where you're going to house all these people? So now we have property taxes, and we have other impacts that are occurring in a cascade out from building this significant facility. Are you bringing in your own power? Are you going to create a solar, geothermal, or other alternative power source for your data processing center, which reduces the load on the grid, which will cause this to be an autonomous operation, which can help offset any issues that might be associated with fossil fuels or other sources of energy. So we start chipping away at this and asking ourselves, well, what can we do that's not so much about us, but is good for our community or is good for the world? It's good for our customers. That goes beyond the internal operation of your business. It may be that you have a brand new medical product that everyone can benefit from. It may be like Knowledge Avatars, who I work with, where they have an AI product that could benefit anyone. And if you apply that worldwide, then they could have the largest, greatest potential impact just within the scope of their product. But are there other things you can do beyond your product itself? Can you create upgrades? Can you make it more affordable? Can you make sure that your product's available to charities and nonprofits and civic organizations in the community? So you get to thinking about how many people are you going to touch, how much monetary or non-monetary help or enrichment is going to occur to the people around you. And as a startup, as a single person or a small group of entrepreneurs getting started, what I like to see them do is to take community planning, to take charitable planning, embed it into your story, hardwire it. So as I say, instead of saying I'll make a charitable contribution at the end of the year if I make a profit, if I'm in the mood, if I'm able, if you do a revenue share where you set aside a percentage of all your sales to go to 1, 2, or 3, or half a dozen charities, now you are starting to define yourself not as an island, as a business, but as part of the world, part of your community. And this is going to become obvious to people around you that you have this larger view of the world, that you do care about the people around you. And this is a form of credibility that will be attributed to you as people are looking at you and what you do. But think about it now. The last 10 or 20 different offering documents that I was asked to look at were solely about, I need this much money, I'm going to give you so much money back in the future, or even less information. We hope to make money in the future. We hope to share that money at an unknown time. And how much money you're going to make, we don't know. Okay, that now I'm at a point where I can't even accurately project my return on investment, but I have nothing else to work with. So I'm asking myself, why would anyone invest in this particular company? Because it's almost a blind deal. It's not as bad as speculative investments, but nonetheless, it's there. And So the point that I'm making here is that if you start thinking about metrics, how you impact everybody across the board, and you put this data into your offering documents, and you decide that you want to share this with your investors, then it gives them more stuff to look at. It gives them a different way to evaluate you. It puts you in a different category from people that are sharing one dimension. Now you've got multiple dimensions on how you do that. And the point of this is that you have a number of things you can do as a startup. There's not going to be as many of these as you would like because you're with limited resources, you have limited history and so forth. But the things that you do that make you stand out may be that you donate your time to a charity, you adopt a charity, you participate in some industry programs, you help me develop metrics for social impact. All these things make you look different. And if you're trying to distinguish yourself, if you're trying to go out into the marketplace and do that, then you are achieving what I'm trying to get across today, which is when you go out and compete for money in 2025 and going forward, ROI probably isn't going to be a good enough story. No matter how high you think you may go, how large you can scale, how much of a unicorn you might possibly become someday. Today, you're a startup. Today, you're high risk. Today, there are lots of other companies who are making the same or higher claims to being able to return money to investors that are taking advantage of advances in new technology, changes in the marketplace, government policies. And if you are not in one of these bubbles where a market's going to come up, inflate, and then disappear, your ability to make money is tied in some ways to your cost of resources and the ability to attract these resources to you. And so you need to distinguish yourself as much as possible, wherever possible, so that other people out there who may share in your vision and work that you're doing may view you as somebody that they want to work with and that they would put their resources with you. So that brings us to the end of today's program. I appreciate everybody in the viewing audience. I recognize that I'm in disagreement with the people who are advocates for Bitcoin, and it's a good conversation to have at times, but it's not something we're going to talk about today. And at the same time, we have so many different things that can be done to try to bring an opportunity to a point where it's fundable. This requires some funding in its own right, so we're going to be looking at different ways or mechanisms to do seed funding or pre-seed funding or whatever label that you want to put on that. But give some thought to how you're viewed, how you might be measured by people outside of your organization, and why is that of value? How would this change the mind of an investor who's looking for something that's more in close affinity with who they are and what they value, that goes beyond ROI. So thank you, everyone, for being in the audience today. We'll see you next week on Tuesday at 8 o'clock Mountain Time.